Hey everyone, this is Pastor Josh at Holy Trinity Lutheran Church, and tonight we have Anna Friedman with us. Uh,
Hello.
hey Anna, thanks for joining us. Thanks for allowing me to interview you.
Absolutely. Why not?
Uh, you're you're at home right now,
Right.
and usually you would be in college, right? Would you
Mhm.
still be away at school?
Yes, I would be away at school until about mid-May because that's when my finals would have ended.
Where are you going to school again?
Wesleyan University in Connecticut, East Coast.
East Coast. Do you know what the weather is like on the East Coast right now?
Pretty gross, actually, yeah. Because I know some people who are still on campus, like international students and whatnot. And I have French and Italian on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So I hear from them during those classes because the professors always ask us like, "Oh, what's the weather?" And French or Italian respectively. So yeah, today was pretty 40s, raining, clouds. Yeah,
Did you do
not
school from outside today? Were you like on your
I
porch?
did. They were all really mad at me for doing it, but I felt great, so it was all good.
It's
Getting
really
the
good.
sun and all
Well, I'm glad you agreed to be interviewed. I know you're a college student, and so you'd probably be out on a Friday night right now, right? Like you would not be necessarily hanging out with your pastor. Uh,
that. I mean, me now, I would be studying in the library. What are you talking about? What are you talking? Gosh, it's ridiculous.
uh, okay, so the first thing I want to get is like your background, history, uh, and your history at the church. So like, how long have you lived in San Carlos for?
Um, so I've lived in San Carlos for about 17 years now. We moved here from San Francisco when I was 2 years old. So I don't remember living in San Francisco at all. And we joined the church when I want to say maybe 7 or 8. So I've been a member of the church for over a decade now,
Yeah.
just about over a decade. And yeah, and my parents were the ones who introduced me to Holy Trinity because at the tender age of 8 or 9, I'm not the one who's going to be going out looking for churches.
Right.
But yeah, so I've attended since before I left for college. I attended pretty regularly, and I was there just about every Sunday, I would say, for whenever we were in town and whatnot. So yeah, it was really great being able to grow up in a really loving community like Holy Trinity. And it was really good to just kind of have that very strong base of people even through the school changes and everything.
Do you have like a first memory of Holy Trinity at all?
I don't know if this is the first memory, but I have a very, very vivid memory of Pastor Dan during children's time. He always liked whipping out his guitar. And I just remember one time, I can't even remember what it was. He did the funniest song that was something like, um, oh, one of the lines was like, "It's a grumpy day and I don't thank God for the weather. It's a grumpy day, blah, 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 blah." And it's kind of like the verses are, him complaining. And then the chorus is like, "Oh, but I, thank God each day for allowing me to like live my life," or something like that. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but I have that very vivid memory because I was like, okay, because, church is like, it keeps it real, keeps it real. Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you have like a favorite memory too? Like you have this very vivid memory. Is there like a favorite memory that you have of HTLC?
Oh, favorite memory. I mean, honestly, Easter Sunday, I mean, there have been many of them. But Easter Sunday has always been really fun for me, especially just getting to when I got older, I got to like hide all the eggs and be on the other side of things and like watch all the little kids run around and get the candy and get super excited. So that's definitely all the Easter Sundays are definitely a highlight. And everyone wears their hats too, which is, a huge plus.
So it's kind of like you went from finding the eggs to being able to be on the other side of that to hiding
Exactly. Yes, it was very much a full circle moment.
them.
Yes, very literary, very poetic.
Right on. So you're in college now, and what are you majoring in?
So I recently declared a double major in chemistry and Italian. And I'm also pre-med. So Lots of science classes mixed in with a few language classes. You know, I gotta keep things interesting. And hopefully I'll be studying abroad my spring semester of junior year, which will be spring 2021.
And I'm assuming you want to
In
go to
Bologna.
Italy. In where?
Yes. The University of Bologna.
And
Hopefully.
okay. I don't know where Bologna is on the boot.
It's in the north-ish. It's kind of like in the middle of the north, but not like super far north. It's not like Torino or anything. It's near-ish to Milan.
I never did a study abroad. So like, are you there just to learn languages? Are you there to take like more biology classes or chemistry, or like do you know what that looks like for you?
Yeah. So, I'll be taking 4 classes if I'm there / while I'm there.
Right.
And all of them will count towards the Italian major. And all of the classes are primarily focused on improving your Italian language skills, hence being in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't believe I will be taking any science classes there because the science credits wouldn't transfer over for my major or for the pre-medical requirements. So I'd mostly focus on like literature and history and philosophy and that sort of thing.
Awesome. You take some like art history when you're there. Like,
yes, and art history.
Amazing,
yes.
Right? Do you live with a family while you're there? Do you live in a dorm room? Do you live in a community of people? Do you know how that works?
I believe it's a dorm situation, except it's not dorms, it's apartments. But you have a roommate and there's, students all around you and that sort of thing. So that would also be very fun because you'd be constantly surrounded by people speaking Italian. And so you would have no choice but to speak Italian, which is the whole point, full immersion. Yeah.
How would you say your Italian is right now?
Così. It's decent.
It's decent. Do you feel like you're conversational, like pre-conversational? Do you feel like you could, like fluent?
No, I'm definitely not fluent. I would say I'm like conversational.
Okay.
Relatively. Yeah.
You feel like you could hold your own?
Relatively well.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
So if you went to Italy right now, you'd be like, I got this. We can get around the city.
Oh, yes.
I can find the bathroom. I can order food, read street signs, that kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. Well, we were in Verona this past summer. I was the, reservation making person and the food ordering person and the wine ordering person primarily.
That's really great. Your parents were just like, you do the thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure that's the only reason they brought me, was just to translate. And
right. Well, that school has to pay off in some ways for your parents.
Exactly.
That's great. Do you have any place? So have you been to Italy before that? Have you been to Italy a few times?
Yeah, we've been to Italy a couple times. Well, more than a few times, because both my parents really, really like Italy quite a lot. Yeah. And they went there relatively often while my mom was doing her postdoc research at the University of Cambridge in England. So we've been Verona, as I said. We've been to Florence. We've been to Siena, Sorrento, Capri, which is an island off the coast of the southern Italy.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are more places. Oh, Umbria, which is like this really cute little hill town.
Yeah.
Or not Umbria, sorry. Orvieto, which is a really cute little hill town in Umbria. As I said, I'm sure there are more, but that's a taste.
Do you have any places that you're like, I would love just to go back and be in this town again?
Yes. I would love to go back to Capri, which is it's so beautiful. It's because it's an island with Italian food and really good shopping. It's so good.
Yeah, I know that you love shoes, right? You're a fan of shoes. Is that fair to say?
That I think that would probably be a fair statement. Yes.
Because you're always wearing like rockin' shoes when you come. And so like, I just assume. I shouldn't assume. Maybe
no. You're entirely correct in that assumption. Yes.
Yeah. So did you get to like go to any shoe stores? Did you get to go to?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Prada or like.
Oh yeah, all of them. Prada, Valentino, Roberto Cavalli, Salvatore Ferragamo, just, yeah, all of them.
Yeah.
They're all on the island. I mean, I didn't buy anything from those places because good Lord, but it's always good to look. It's always fun to look.
No doubt. No doubt. No doubt. It's fun just to window shop, right?
Yeah,
Be
exactly.
part of a new experience in that way, right? That's awesome. Okay, so Italy, and what you said you're pre-med also. You want to be a doctor, is that right?
Yes, that's
you want
correct.
to like do research, or do you want to do like be a general practitioner? Do you have any idea of kind of where you want to go in this thing yet?
That's a fantastic question. It changes every, few days or so. But at the moment, my main goal is I want to practice medicine and I want to work with patients. Was the original goal, and that is still one of the goals. As for doing research, I'm not sure how involved in research I'm going to be, or how involved in research I will want to be, because as I said earlier, right now, actually I didn't say this. I'm working in a chemistry lab right now at Wesleyan, or at least I was until recently. And I really enjoyed that. That's been a really fun experience. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do regarding research. I don't know if I'll do like a master's and then go to med school, or do an MD PhD program, because that's a lot of time. I've been told by many people, Anna, that's a huge time commitment. I'm like, I know. So we'll see. Nothing is set in stone yet.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's cool that you have a general direction that you're heading, right? Like I think that's a pretty pretty cool, because you're are you a freshman right now, or you sophomore?
No, sophomore.
You're a sophomore. See, I'm already forgetting. You're a sophomore now, so that's really great. You spent a lot of time in school, but do you have any hobbies? Is there anything like, what do you do in your spare time? What hobbies that you love? Maybe hobby you picked up, but you haven't done in a while.
So I really like to draw. That's definitely a hobby I have, drawing and painting. I took art all 4 years in high school, but I haven't been able to take an art class in college, unfortunately. But just in my own time, I really like to, I like to sketch and I like to paint and that sort of thing. And I've picked that up since I've been back, because, I have like my nice set of paints here and my brushes, and a bit more time on my hands than I did at Wesleyan. So that's definitely something I picked up again. And also,
can I ask you a question about the painting just before we go on to the next thing? Is there anything that you like to paint in general? Is it landscapes? Is it fruit? Is it people? Like, what do you find yourself drawing or sketching or painting?
At the moment, it's a lot of landscapes, because I've kind of psychoanalyzed myself a little bit. I think it's because I'm getting a little bit of cabin fever, not being able to leave. So I'm painting all of these different places to escape in a way.
For sure.
Which I think is understandable. Sense. Yeah. So definitely landscapes at the moment are the most common.
What's the most like challenging for you?
I would say definitely faces are very challenging. And then also painting things that are transparent is very challenging as well.
What do you mean by transparent?
So like glass, for example, that's very tricky to get right. Yeah, because glass like bends the light a certain way, and it's very hard for me, at least, to capture that on paper. But it looks really good when it's done well, so I keep trying.
I've known some pastors who have done for Good Friday. You know what Stations of the Cross are? They're different stations of Jesus.
Carrying the cross.
Bearing the cross, the crucifixion scenes, right? So there's different scenes of it. And what these pastors do is they enlist the congregation, take one station of the cross, and do some sort of artistic representation of it. So some people will paint it. Some people will do like collages. Some people will do some sort of modern art piece that represents it. and then you hold a service around the Stations of the Cross.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'd love to do that at some point in time.
Yeah.
I just don't know how many people in our church do art like you do. And so, one of my fears is that I'm like, hey, I'd like to do this thing. And then, nobody's an artist in our church.
Gotcha.
But that's really cool that you do that. Do you have any other hobbies?
I mean, I like to read. That's another big thing. I'm rereading one of my favorite books right now because, again, lots more time on my hands. And it's called The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. I highly recommend it to anyone.
It's called The Unbearable?
Yes, The Unbearable Lightness of Being.
Oh, this sounds interesting.
It's,
I feel like this is up my alley.
It honestly, yeah, it probably is. It's a work of philosophical fiction. That's the genre that it's part of. And I read it for the first time during one of my English classes that I took senior year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the reason I like it so much is because the teacher I had did a spectacular job like leading the discussions and getting us to dig deeper and everything. So that book is just, it's so good. It has a very special place in my heart. And there's a dog as the main character, one of the main characters. So
is it about existence, or is it about what it means to be human? What would you say is the main kind of philosophical thrust of it?
Oh man. Well, the short answer sort of is it focuses a lot on existentialism. And it talks a lot about Nietzsche and the idea of eternal return and that sort of thing.
Now, I'm sure that, I know, of course, what eternal return is. People that are listening here, maybe you can explain that to them.
Yeah. So essentially, and I don't know if I'll get this completely right, but to my understanding, Nietzsche's idea of eternal return is essentially it's kind of hard to explain, either every moment that happens in someone's life happens an infinite number of times, which is the idea of something recurring ad infinitum, or every moment occurs just once, thus making the moment meaningless. So it's two, very different points of view that the theory covers. And of course, this is philosophy. There's no data you can get for any of this.
Sure.
But
because I don't know this, what does it mean why would it be important that one particular moment happen over and over again for infinity? Like what is the benefit of that, or even the detriment of that?
Yeah. So I still don't have a full understanding of that.
We're just talking here.
No, yeah. It's one of the questions that the book poses and does not give an answer to.
Interesting.
And yeah, so it really makes you think about it quite a lot. I still have not drawn a solid conclusion yet.
Sure.
It was something about, if something were to have happened once, then it might as well not have happened at all. That was there's a saying in German that he uses also that expresses the same idea, but it's escaping me at the moment.
Yeah. Do they ever get across the point, like there's a moment that only happened once, and to be like grateful for that moment because it only happened once, like that kind of sentiment there? Yeah.
So there's actually one of the main characters in the book, Tomas, he gets in a relationship with this woman named Teresa, and a recurring motif throughout the novel is that Teresa and Tomas met through 6 fortuities. 6 laughable fortuities, I believe, is the line that they use over and over. And so that kind of, in a way, is an argument for like, well, if a moment only happened once, it can still be significant because there were these 6 little events that happened that led to them meeting. So I thought that was an interesting, like, kind of side note to all of it. And okay, I just Googled it. So the phrase is einmal ist keinmal. That's the German phrase, which translated means once is never. So that's the idea. Like if something happened once, it might as well have never happened at all.
Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder why that's a thing. Like,
No, yeah,
that's really interesting. So you find yourself coming back to this book again and again.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
How many times have you read it?
I think this is my fourth time now
Nice.
reading it. Yeah. I think the reason I come back to it is, well, for one thing, I love it. And for another thing, something my English professor said, or my English teacher said to us that really struck me was every time he goes back and reads it, he feels differently about the characters and he has a different takeaway from it. And so I was very curious to see if the same thing would happen to me. And it did. My opinions have changed each time I've read it. And, I guess it has to do with gaining more life experience.
I was just going to ask you that if maybe it's because you're a little older, you're a little wiser, you have a little more life experience.
Yeah.
That your perception of, where you maybe identify yourself in the book changes a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely.
Do you have any other books that are significant like that for you?
Okay, there is a book called okay, well there's two. So there's a book called Mountains Beyond Mountains by Tracy Kidder, and it's about it's nonfiction, it's all true, and it's about a doctor named Paul Farmer who is, oh my god, he's just like everything I want to be and more. He's like the ideal doctor, more or less.
Okay.
Oh my god. Anyway, so the book is essentially, so Tracy Kidder, the author, follows around Paul Farmer for, I don't know, maybe a year or so, and conducts a bunch of interviews with him and people around him. And it mainly focuses on the work that Paul Farmer started and still does in Haiti. And he, not single-handedly, but I would say he single-handedly started the medical movement to end tuberculosis in Haiti, or at least not to end it, but to drastically decrease the rates of tuberculosis. And part of the reason he wanted to do that was because nobody really wanted to offer any aid to Haiti because it wasn't, what was it? The cost benefit analysis just, didn't pan out, and there was no point in doing it because you couldn't make money from it, and you'd just be pouring a lot of money into a drain. And Paul Farmer was like, no, screw that. I'm gonna go out there and actually make a difference. And he did. And oh my gosh, he's amazing, honestly. And part of the reason he was so successful is because he had a very holistic approach to his treatment, and he involved pretty much all the members of the community, and he specifically focused a lot on training people who lived in Haiti. He didn't just bring a bunch of doctors from the US and be like, okay, like now go, do everything, fix it. No. He brought a couple, of his own staff to get things started, and then trained people in Haiti so they could take care of their own, essentially. So yeah, he was just, oh my god, he's so cool. He's a really cool guy.
And you said there was another book too.
Oh yeah, sorry. And then I could monologue about this book. And the other book is called, oh my gosh, what's it called? It's by Anne Fadiman. The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down. I don't know why the name escaped me. Anyways, which is also very medically based. But it essentially, the whole book illustrates the importance of cultural humility in Western medicine, and it focuses a lot on the shortcomings of the American medical system, not even in terms of the terrible lack of resources we are experiencing right now, but in terms of the doctor-patient relationship, and specifically how the very Cartesian methods of Western medicine can seem to be in conflict with more traditional remedies or traditional medicine practices and that sort of thing. But they don't have to be in conflict. The only reason they would be in conflict is if people put them in opposition to each other, to an extent, of course, Right. So the book focuses, this is also nonfiction, the book focuses on a Hmong family who immigrated to the United States, and their daughter started developing started having seizures when she was very young, and her parents didn't take her to see a doctor for I can't remember exactly how long, maybe the first few months that it was happening, because they didn't trust the American health system. And they had no reason to, because they were treated very poorly. And then, so eventually, you know, they do take her to a doctor and everything. And the whole book follows her case. She's eventually diagnosed with epilepsy. And the whole book follows her medical journey, and her doctors and her parents' medical journey. And it also focuses a lot on giving background about the Hmong people, which are an ethnic group in where is it? I think mostly in Laos and Vietnam, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, and so oh my god, it's a spectacular book, and the author put so much hard work and research into it. I think it took her about a decade to publish.
Yeah.
With all the interviews and everything she conducted. So that's another one.
Well, I mean, it's really great that I'm sensing a theme in your life, right? Like you really care about both, it seems, you know, medicine and healing of people, but also even in studying Italian, kind of this understanding that cultures are, you know, there's a part of to have, what did you say, cultural humility? Did you say that?
Yeah, cultural humility.
It's really important to have that, right? Because I just started a book today called Dancing in the Streets, and it's a collective history of joy.
Oh.
And so the intro to this book basically talked about how in the mid 19th century, you have these people going, and, you know, the development of really understanding anthropology and trying to figure things out. And they would go to Africa and they would watch these dances that would turn into maybe these kind of sexual encounters, you know, orgies maybe, or something, I don't know, something like that, right? Mm-hmm. But it was, but they just distanced themselves automatically from it because it wasn't Western Christian kind of, you know, things, right? But only going back to it, understanding that there's this, you know, sense that these people are getting and binding themselves together in these ecstatic rituals in order to experience joy and ecstasy together, right? Just a side note, this author did another book before this on basically the same thing, but about how like we're bloodthirsty and how lynchings happen and how like war happens and collective, you know, mob mentalities, that sort of thing. I only learned about that part from reading the introduction today, but I thought, you know, since we're in a situation, it'd be really cool to learn about joy and like how people think about joy. So I'm reading this book and I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. You know, I'd recommend it to anybody. You know, there's this book I read in college, because you're talking about books that have been influential for you, that really influenced me. And it's a nonfiction book. It's called Impure Science. And I was taking a science class, and the whole book revolves around the AIDS pandemic in the 80s and early 90s, and the AZT trials that happened during that time, because usually you would have double-blind trials, right, where one control group would get placebos, and then another group would get the medicine and they would, you know, do science, right? But they were realizing that to have a control group that gets placebo means that they're dead.
Yep.
You know, and so to have to navigate ethics and maybe adjust the method of the way they're going to do these trials in order to not allow people to die, was something that they really had to work out. And it was, and just that kind of thing is not as clear and clean as we make science out to be, right? That there's a human factor, there's ethical barriers that we have to or ethical dilemmas that we have to go through. And it was just a really good book. So
Yeah.
that's one book that I always think about anytime I talk about, and I know, and I'm not a sciencey person, but anytime I it's just fascinating, and you learn a lot about the AIDS epidemic. So
Impure Science, you said it was called?
it's called Impure Science, and I probably read it in like 2003. So how old were you? Were you alive in 2003?
I was. My sister was just barely, depending on.
Just barely born. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you love to read books. You paint. You're in school. I heard you box too.
Yes, that's correct.
You take boxing classes?
Yes, I do.
And what got you started into that?
I think I was at the club fair.
Okay.
At the beginning of my first year. And me and one of my new friends were just, we were just walking around looking at everything. And I just remember boxing had a really good poster. It was a very, very eye-catching, and there was like a pair of boxing gloves hanging off of it. So we're like, oh, we should go look at that. And part of what drew me in was one of the leaders of the club, Jess. I still don't know how she does it. She's just so full of energy and enthusiasm. She convinced me in like 5 seconds that I needed to join this club.
That's really great.
And yeah, so I have to credit Jess, of course. And also just because, it sounded, I did sports all 4 years in high school, but I wasn't planning on doing any sports at Wesleyan. And so I thought boxing would also be a really good way to stay in shape and hold myself accountable to going to the workouts and going to the gym and that sort of thing.
Nice. Nice. Okay, I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. And these are more, I feel like we've already had some like serious, but when you think of the characteristics of who you want to be, like what you strive to be, what are the virtues, what are the characteristics of the person that you're striving to be?
Oh man, good question. Well, one thing is, I suppose, empathy. I think I already have empathy, but I want to further develop it for sure. I think that's really important for anyone to have, because we're all human beings. So to get along, everyone's got to have a little empathy for each other. What else? I want to stay ambitious, and I want to, keep my drive to work hard and do good in the world. But at the same time, I want to become less critical of myself and be a little less harsh with myself. And by that I don't mean like, oh, brush aside every mistake you made because you're perfect. I don't mean that. I just mean be a little more accepting of myself when I make mistakes and that sort of thing.
For sure.
And I could stand to learn a few more languages, so there's that too. Definitely going for proper polyglot status.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And we've also talked about it before, but it seems like cultural humility is something that you really want to be part of, right? And you really want to embody, and I think that's a noble trait to have. I also experience you to be just a very joyful person. I experience you just to, like, when you come in, you want to make other people smile and light up other people's worlds. And I've noticed that about you.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very great characteristic to have as well.
Well, thank you.
Okay, this is my last questions, and this is also kind of a serious question. Actually, I have 2 more questions.
Okay.
I'm just going to keep on saying I have 2 more questions.
2 more. Okay.
Okay, what is faith to you? What does it mean to have faith for you?
Well, oh, this sounds so cheesy. Okay, whenever I hear someone say the word faith, the first thing I think of, I'm pretty sure it was an Indiana Jones movie where he has to like take a leap of faith or something like that, and he has to like jump off a cliff and expect that there's gonna be like a bridge or rope to catch him.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of what comes to mind. I don't
Yeah.
know why it made such an impression on me. I don't even know which movie it's from. Haven't seen it in years.
I think it's the Holy Grail.
Okay, well then perfect. It's the Holy Grail.
Uh,
Very fitting. So that's, in a way, that's kind of what I think of, because part of faith is that there's you don't have any empirical evidence to go off. You don't have any data to, support your conclusions. And I'm a somewhat sciencey person, so I appreciate data. So initially having faith was relatively challenging for me. But I've learned to sort of I've grown so that I can have faith and accept that it's okay to have faith without having like, solid data to support it. So I think that's what faith is to me, to believe in something, to believe in the existence of something without, necessarily seeing it before your eyes.
no, that's a great answer. I really appreciate it. And I love movies and movie references. And so I'm really glad that you brought up that movie reference.
There
It's a
you
great
go.
one.
Yeah.
It's a great one. Okay, so you're still a member of our church, Holy Trinity. What is your hope for our congregation? Do you have any hopes for our church in general?
Yeah, I mean, well, definitely after we had a very, I don't know what the word is, very action packed, not very action packed, very stressful January for sure.
We could even say traumatic.
Traumatic, that's also
Traumatic
a
is
very fitting word. Thank you. Yeah, traumatic, a very traumatic January. I mean, we all came through it on the other side, which I was very proud of. And I was very proud to see, leadership from you, leadership from America, leadership from the council, and just honestly, everyone in church, to make sure that people knew that it was okay to talk about how they were feeling and that sort of thing. And I think that really speaks to the kind of community that we are. We don't just, shove things under the rug and say, oh, it's fine, put on a happy face. Like, no, we recognize that it's important to talk about things, and that's really essential to healing. And so I think, even though we can't attend services in person naturally due to the current COVID-19 circumstances, I think honestly we'll be able to come out stronger on the other side, because we're still having the YouTube live streams and that sort of thing, and the virtual coffee hours and all this. So I would say really my hope for the congregation is just that we continue being loving and open and very supportive of each other, like we have been for so many years. Yeah, so I think that's what I would say.
I am so glad that we got to spend time together and have this conversation, and I am just so excited also just to watch what happens in your life, because I just think you are a remarkable person, and it is an honor to be your pastor. And so thank you for agreeing to have a conversation with me tonight. And I hope the people who are watching this are just as excited as I am, or I have been. So thank you, Anna.
Yeah, thank you very much.